state and city funds. So we have been constantly struggling to persist, especially after the 2008 crisis. However, there have been two efforts to broaden our activity, and they proved to be essential for the continuation of the magazine. So the first one is Days of Oris Symposium. It was initiated in 2000. It takes place once a year in Zagreb, but also smaller and locally more specific iterations have been occasionally organized in Dubrovnik, in Ljubljana, Slovenia, in Belgrade, Serbia, and so on. But the main event in Zagreb attracts more than 2,000 visitors from country and abroad. And because of its internationally relevant lineup with speakers such as RCR, after winning the prize, OMA, Kazuo Sejima, and so on, it has become the major architectural event of the region. And the intention has always been to mix local and foreign authors, different generations, different contexts, and famous and still undiscovered authors. So the second is opening of Oris House of Architecture. In 2015, it's a multi-purpose cultural center established as NGO, and it is positioned in the city center, containing a gallery, a library, and the offices of the magazine. Here we are organizing exhibitions, lectures, but also different kinds of cultural events. It's crucial that the magazine, the symposium, and the House of Architecture proved to be a successful triangular scheme of mutually complementing institutions that enable us to establish some connections between our publishing and our curatorial activities, as well to attract sponsors and to make network of the ads, of the events, of the articles, and so on. So it's when I was asked to say something about a success and failure case, it's difficult to single out as something very special because Oris's editorial policies have been quite cautious, and we do not experiment a lot, so there are no great successes and great failures. However, we are always struggling to manage this very long list of contributors in every issue and to try to maintain a level of quality and to balance the content. However, there are two instances I would like to mention. So the first kind of failure is our website. Although we have been active on Facebook and Instagram and some social networks, our website is actually our soft spot. It has outdated design and editorial strategy is inconsistent, so it's useful for acquiring information on publications, on events, on gallery, but it was never capable of creating its own audience, its own readership, and complementing the content of the magazine in the way that some other magazines achieve to do. Concerning the success case, I would like to say something about this Oris Plus edition. Oris Plus are brochures that are published alongside the magazine, and they elaborate in detail one project from the current issue. The selected projects are usually technologically complex and large-scale buildings with number of construction firms and parties interested to publish their ads and to contribute to the edition. And the brochure is sold not only to readers, to subscriptions, but also to the institutions that want to present themselves through their architecture, such as tourist communities, hotels, corporations, and so on. So, thank you. This is it.
Te dije que prepararas el primero. Muy very mal.
Okay. Hello.
Sometimes.
I think it's on. Yes. Hello. Good morning.
Or you can stand.
Okay.
Well, we try it.
We'll do our best.
Yeah. Otherwise, one of us can stand there.
We'll talk about some promiscuity right now. And my name is Ethel Baraona.
And I'm César Reyes.
We are DPR Barcelona, and we are here to share experiences and talk about success, a bit of failure. We dislike a bit this because there is something that is particular for us architects, is that we are happy with our colleagues' failures and envy with their success. But this is not our fault, folks, because that's human nature. And it's particularly a human characteristic in competitive environments. And architecture is competitive environment.
Yeah, we call it promiscuous encounters because we are publishers. We are not, we don't have a magazine, let's say. We devote our work to publishing, criticism, and curating. And our promiscuity with magazines, which is the topic of the panel, comes from the many contributions we have done along the years with many well-known magazines.
Just as writers, advisors, and discussants in many ways. We're going to pass some of them. Ethel at the end likes to move, so.
Yeah. I'm César, I'm not Ethel.
We're going to show briefly some of them, and in fact, this kind of promiscuity for us is quite interesting because allow us to detach from our reality and go to other ones. And the previous one, for example, was a very nice example of this promiscuity, Quaderns magazine, in which Ethel was editor.
Yeah, so we love this promiscuity, and that's why we are here, because it allows us to make and work with many friends, colleagues, and to make these alliances that Celine Condorellis points here that are very important in the production of our own work as publishers, because it allows us to know many people, many contributors, many projects around the world. So it's one of the, I must say, the success of working for a magazine. So some examples of how this impact and knowledge about working of magazine is represented in our work is the case of Archifutures.
Before moving forward, we will just like to point that every case that we will show has its own part of success or also failure. For instance, writing for several publications, bring this, this aura of, oh, it's nice, they're going over there. But this also has its part of failure, which is all the immaterial labor that it carries. When you are a freelancer, it's very difficult to really say how much your work's worth. And this comes with a lot of precarity in our task. This is something that, in general, is a failure for us as writers and critics, because it's something that needs to be addressed if we are claiming for contents of quality. So it's a success, yes, but it's also a failure. Right now, moving to Archifutures, this is a collection of books that started in some way fed by a failure. We were very enthusiastic about the emergence of apps in architectural field. So we tried to know all the intricacies of that, and it was a complete failure with no downloads from App Store or Google Market. But that will give us the sense of there is a lot of potential working in digital realm. This collection of books that in some way is also related with magazines, because we have commissioned all the editing of the contents to and beyond, which are the editors of the former Uncube magazine, which was a really successful magazine online that at the end ended because of financial issues that we know all these kind of struggles in publishing. This will lead to this collection of books that we publish under the umbrella of Future Architecture Platform. It's a series of books very carefully edited with contents that at the end became also available online on a, let's say, period basis as a magazine under a subject, and that also allow for the readers to access, to rearrange, and even to make their own compilations. This is part of the research and the, let's say, the tries that failing in the app field led us to try to this experimental case, which is quite interesting. If you go to the previous,
to the previous one.
If you can explain this.
No, I was about to say that this is an example of how from the printed books that we have, it becomes in the digital realm something like a magazine, because the contents are displayed online as architectural review or Oris more or less or detail does. But also it allows to go back to the book if you make your own compilation that César will explain, and then you can get your printed book. So this kind of loop, we think it's very interesting in how this, Miriam said before that the boundaries are very blurred between all the medias that we have represented here today.
What is interesting here, this is a tool which right now we see is quite interesting for institutions or educational centers in which they have a quite consistent editorial background in which they can allow the possibility for the readers to go back, explore them, arrange, and even print on demand, because this is another part of our exploration. We are in the process of that those compilations can be personalized, downloaded, or even print on demand. So as you can see, that big failure, because it was a crash on apps,
we were begging for one download.
who led to this kind of innovation, and in some way we are still in the process to see if it's a success. We still don't know.
4 years ago, we were reading Wire magazine, and Bruce Sterling made this very strong article about that events are the new magazines. And as I said before, we are also curators of events and exhibitions. We start thinking about, is this true or not, or why? And
it's just provocation.
Exactly. So it somehow, it has a meaning because, for example, when you are curating an event like this one, you have a curatorial statement, which is the example of the editorial statement of a magazine. You have contributors. You have a time to wrap it up. So somehow it is, but also us as a publishers and not magazine makers start thinking beyond that. And we always try to, with our events, to make a printed output. So this idea of that from the event, we can have not only the metaphorical magazine, but also a magazine instead, has driven us to explore in other formats. For example, this project, you explain this and I the next? Yeah.
Networked Politics was quite interesting event in the Venice Biennial, in which we had this curatorial statement, a board that was making advice, also contributors who were part of the discussions. There were also some amenities, let's say, like this. We tried it with, holograms, and it was quite interesting to see how they interact in the event itself. It has also some printing outcomes. Here we tried to develop a bot together with Space Caviar, which was quite interesting, we thought, because from all the social network feed that was dealing with the event, this bot compiled them, arranged following some topics, and we had 3 printers spitting out. It was quite nice to see how all these discussions that were immaterial, let's say, could be translated in this materiality of printing. It was also, let's say, a kind of the nonce of how ephemeral and social network and online content.
Yeah, this was a performative magazine making, let's say. And this is another project that we did with the same ideas in mind, we were commissioned with Malkit Shoshan and Marina Otero to present this research we were doing about retreat from militarization of public space, retreat from surveillance, but also retreat from our own desire to be online all the time, let's say. So we decided to do the research in the form of a lexicon. And when the Istanbul Design Biennial commissioned us to make the exhibition, we were thinking, okay, a lexicon, it has something to do also with printed matter, with magazines or publications. So we did this display. And for each word of the lexicon, we have all the booklets, and every people who came to the exhibition was able to create their own magazine, let's say, going back to the name of the panel. So you can collect all of them, or you can become your own editor and make your own selection, which is also one of the main ideas, because this was 4 years ago, one of the main ideas we are using now for the ArchiFuture projects and the personal compilation. So how all of these projects are connected and evolving one from the other.
Before you move forward, for us it's quite like an obsession to know which kind of impact our work has. And we think that just telling the number of books that we sell, the print of our magazine, is a poor statistics. Yesterday was in some way show this concern of knowing our message is reaching. Right now in the previous panel, there was no response to Catalina's claim about thinking what have been doing. For us, this is something which nowadays is we are quite able to do. With ArchiFuture's project, we have developed a tool aided by artificial intelligence that is able to have a very approximate idea of who's reading us. At this moment, we can say that our reader is a person between 27 and 32 years, mostly man, we have to say, and which is accessing the contents through a mobile phone. So
we finish with this.
Hallo, wir alle. Ihr Haus ist fertig gezeichnet.
This will bring us to try to tell young people in the language they are. We are working not for our contemporaries, but for people which is coming. They will make sense of our work. So thank you very much, and we're open for the debate.
I do a proposal, so to try to stay in time also, because there are some speakers and then has the flight. So I do a question that I ask you to quickly answer. Then we leave the floor to the digital panel and we put together maybe also more questions, because as I